All right, I think it's time for us to begin. Okay, who's ready for lunch? Yeah, the good news is I specifically told the organizers this is a very lightweight talk. It's good for an end of a session right before a break or at the end of the day, and they put it right before lunch on Friday, which I think is their way of saying, yep. So, my name's Caskey. Some of you may know me. If you attended my tutorial on Monday, this is going to be the exact opposite of that. It's not going to just be a fire hose of information. So we've got that going for you. I'm currently an SRE at Microsoft. I moved there 2 months ago to the new SRE division, which is working on reinventing operations at Microsoft in a very large way. And I come there from 5.5 years at Google, before that Symantec, and before that spent a bunch of years at a university, and so on and so forth. But enough about me. Let's talk about technical debt, right? Who here loves technical debt? Smart asses. Yeah. Well, it turns out that we've been using a terrible, terrible term to describe something that we all know is bad. Technical debt's bad, right? When we say, oh, we got technical debt, it's a terrible thing, right? The problem is when we go and say and try and address and get resources to fix technical debt problems, we are shooting ourselves in the foot. And we've been doing it for 2 decades now that we've been using this term. I was going to go and try and find the origin of the phrase technical debt, but that turned out to be a useless Google search. So when we say technical debt, this is what this is the message we're trying to convey outward. We're saying there's things wrong. We need to deal with this. This is a problem. Yeah, it's not that the system's broken right now, but there's so much potential for disaster, right? But now, when we say technical debt and we say it to our manager, management's perspective on debt, and I'm talking about executive and senior and business management, people who've gone to business school. This is where getting that executive support for initiatives that fix the underlying cancer inside your products has to be dealt with. When they hear debt, this is what they're thinking. Debt, from a business perspective, is a powerful tool that every company uses to leverage and move their company forward. The pictures you're going to see in the next couple slides are actual marketing materials used to drum up business debt customers. You know, it's all about use debt to grow your business, use debt to expand, use debt to create. The more debt you have, the better you're going to be able to drive this forward. And to be clear, we're talking about commercial debt, not consumer debt. When we think about debt, we think about the credit card in our pocket and the bill we got to pay and this long-term burden on us. That's not what commercial debt is. When a company has $1 million line of credit that they use for operations, they're borrowing it and paying it off entirely every month, every quarter. So it's just this pool that you draw into. It's a reserve to smooth out cash flows, right? And it creates all of these opportunities to expand your business, grow your business, buy new equipment. If you need to buy a $400,000 piece of equipment to do your job, you're not going to have $400,000 of business before you get that equipment. You're going to buy the equipment and you're going to use the debt to smooth out that income that comes over the next 4 or 5 years of the life of that equipment to then get the business value out. And so when we use the word debt to describe a problem, we're taking a term that in someone's mind says, oh, okay, so we're using this debt as a way of doing more faster. Yes, let's keep doing that. You see that's a complete opposite reaction. And so that's really, really bad because when they hear debt, they think, oh, you're enabling to be Neo from the Matrix and control money, right? This is their view of debt. And the picture on the right is actually a picture from someone selling commercial debt, right? So the fact is, though, and also I found a few themes in the artwork. Evidently, debt makes you point and look wistfully into the future when you're surrounded by boxes. So, yeah, there's a lot of other common themes I'll let you go and look up that say interesting things about our socioeconomic status and society and how we relate to each other. But the fact is that from management's perspective, business is frustrating. There's ambiguity. There's risk. And that creates problems for them, all right? But the story that's being sold, and these are also, again, images like, don't be like this, get some commercial debt, and you can be like this. So if you get the appropriate amount of commercial debt, money will rain from the sky, and you will be riding a scooter through the countryside with your best friend, right? And I mean, if you think about it, what does the bottom right have anything to do with buying a new tractor or financing an expansion to a data center, right? It has nothing to do with it. But that's how commercial debt works. And of course, is this true? I mean, banks, the finance industry is selling commercial debt all the time. And yes, it really is how the global economy works, how business operates. You have to smooth out cash flows. You have to first get some capital to go and invest, which you then pay back. And also, your customers don't pay you before you make the product that you give to them. They pay you after you've delivered it. So you need money to actually create the product. And most businesses don't want to self-finance. They don't want a big pool of cash that they sit on and dive into for their reserves. They live much more closer to zero than you'd like to believe. So business debt, it's a revolving nature, and it actually does drive business. These numbers are from 2013, but right now, as of 2013, there's currently a float of $2.5 trillion. That's 2.5 teradollars, right? Now, we use the term teradollars here, teradollars, terabytes. But remember, most of us live our lives in the kilodollar range, right? So there's $2.5 trillion out there of debt that's driving the economy. That's the U.S. GDP is what, $17.8 trillion, and $2.5 trillion of debt is floating around there, and it's revolving debt. This is being paid off every single month and then reinvested and respent. And of course, there's revenue that gets generated for the banks, but that's because companies are willing to spend $700 billion a year just to cover the costs of having money 1 week to the next. So yeah, commercial debt is part of our economy, and it's how it works, and it is a good thing, which is why when we say technical debt, we're shooting ourselves in the foot. So debt is good for a business. More debt means less pain. More debt, more money. Yay! And so we come along and say, our product has lots of technical debt. And they say, awesome. We must be doing really good things. But our technical debt is not like that. Ours isn't continually being paid off and recreated every month. Instead, it just accrues and accrues and accrues and accrues. It's like personal debt. It's like consumer debt, okay? So, so anyway, like what I said, it gets paid off at the end of each month, all right? What we actually have is an impending crisis that can blow up at any time without any knowledge of when will that bug come and bite you? When will that attempt to deploy a new feature and that 3-month release cycle get turned into a 9-month one because you ended up having to completely refactor the integration between your middleware and your database backend because you didn't realize that there had been cross dependencies that got baked in, and so you can no longer scale them independently, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So if you do want to stick in the realm of finance, okay, there is another metaphor that works, and it is the unhedged or naked call option. All right? Basically, it works like this. So you could, for instance, I'll sell you today for $2 the right to come back to me and buy 1,000 hours of compute time for $15, right? Now, today, it costs about $13 for 1,000 hours of compute time, right? And I say to you, anytime between now and March or whatever, you turn in this coupon, and I will then sell you for another $15. I will have $17 in my pocket, 1,000 hours of compute time, right? The problem is I don't have 1,000 hours of compute time when it's a naked option. I'm not selling you a promise for something that I have in inventory. I don't even have it. I don't own any computers. I don't own a cloud. I'm just saying, you know what? When you come and cash that in, I'm going to run out and buy some on Amazon and sell it to you right then, okay? The problem is the price that compute time costs on Amazon between now and March could go up. It could go down, right? If it does go up, if let's say the price of compute time on Amazon goes to $17, right? You come to me and say, hey, I'd like to buy 1,000 hours compute time. I'm like, well, damn, I didn't actually have any, so I got to go out, spend $17 and sell it to you for $15, right? However, you paid me a couple months ago $2 for that, so I'm still up $1. And that's what the purpose of these call options are, is that the person buying them is hedging against the risk that the price will go above $15 before they need to use it. And the person who sells it is hoping the price stays below $15, because if it does, I get to keep the $2. I get twice as much profit if the price doesn't go up, and I get less if it goes down. But the problem is, what if it goes up above $17? What if it goes to $20 an hour? Or $20 for 1,000 hours? All of a sudden now I got to go and spend $20, sell it to you for $15, I got $5, but I only earned $2 on that whole transaction. I'm now down $3. And this is where the naked call options are really scary. My maximum profit is $2. However, my maximum loss, what if half the data centers in the world explode? Some latent bug in the microarchitecture of 3 generations of Intel CPUs take out half the world's computing capacity, all right? I'm trying to make this relevant in terms, but in reality, it's what if a particular stock price, because this is done with stocks all the time. What if the stock price, what if they announce some breakthrough and the price doubles overnight? There's unlimited downside in that. I don't know what the price is that I'll have to pay in the market to then deliver on my commitment to you to sell something for a fixed price, all right? It pretty much is the worst investment ever from the seller's perspective. Now the buyer, yeah, doesn't cost them anything other than $2. Their maximum loss is $2. The gain could be that the thing becomes worth $1,000 and they only paid $15 for it, right? There's unlimited upside for the person you're selling it to and fixed downside. There's fixed upside and unlimited downside, which in the concept of what do we do in our daily life that has a fixed, defined short-term gain, but unlimited future potential for loss? Well, a lot of these things. Every time we say, I'll fix it later, we are saying, I'm going to save myself an hour, a day, a week of engineering time right now. And at the end of that time, when I've saved that hour, I've fully gotten all the benefit I'll ever get from not doing that bit of work. But it's done. It's now. It's in the code. And it's going to live forever until someone comes and cleans it up. And as long as it's there, it can come back and bite us. Fixed upside, the hour I saved today. Perpetual downside with unlimited, unknowable outcomes. So every single day when we are choosing to skip some step in a process or not automate something or not add the metrics in that'll measure a particular operation or not refactor some code because it's more convenient, I'll just throw a global static function in there that nudges the one thing I need to get this done because what I really care about is over here and I don't want to clean up that crufty code base right now. You're saying, hey, I'm going to get a fixed short-term gain right now and I'm going to just roll the dice on when that will come back and bite me. So what are we doing about technical debt? Well, we're doing this. We say, we got a lot of technical debt. We really should fix it, you know? It's like, can we like do some, but how are we actually actively engaging our technical debt? Are we treating it seriously? You know, we've all got our development process, our methodology, our feature. I mean, we're very disciplined, or at least as disciplined as we can be, about how we're rolling out new products and new capabilities and new features. Are we being disciplined about managing all of that built-in debt? Right? I keep calling it debt, and I've been, for a year now, since I came up with this whole concept, I've been trying to train myself not to use technical debt, but it's such a convenient term, right? I haven't yet got a brand new thing, because calling it technical uncovered call options is just too big. So, right now, a lot of us, as an industry, kind of treat it as this thing we complain and whine about, but let's actually be proactive and do something about it. Let's get serious. Let's look at this from the management perspective. All right. Now, one thing that I learned in business school, and what does management do? What is management's purpose? Right? Yeah. Oh, they lead us. It's like, but these are all vague things. One of the concrete things that management is responsible for is assuming risk. Individual contributors, an engineer, doesn't have the authority to basically say, I'm willing to accept this risk on behalf of my shareholders, on behalf of the owners. Management, executive management, assumes risk. They say, okay, here's how much risk we're willing to take in order for the potential at this much profit. Management's function is to assume risk. That is their primary goal, their primary job. So let's actually use those tools and make that risk that we're assuming not implicit, but explicit. So, this is the heart of the talk. If you want to take a picture of the slide, take a picture of this one, because the rest of the talk is just unpacking these 4 things, and it's not going to take us very long. We get to go to lunch, all right? We need to quantify the suck. The suck is the best thing I've come up with as a replacement for technical debt, all right? So we need to quantify it, because when we say, there's technical debt, what do we actually mean, all right? We need to measure it. We need to put numbers around it, so that those numbers can be presented to management and say, hey, look, here are these measures that we've taken to identify the things that we're doing badly in our code base, and here's how we're performing and trending over time. Management will be very happy if you give them a number that says, our suck is at 7 and we'd like it to be at 3. and here's what we can do to push that down. And they can say, well, how many hours will it take to do that? How many days? How will that impact and trade off on our feature release schedule, right? Then decisions can be made that say, okay, maybe we do need to change our planned release date. Maybe we need to adjust product schedules in order to say, okay, if our suck level's at 7 and we've decided that 3 is the right number, let's fix it. And then, of course, you have to continually revisit and apply those. All right, quantifying the suck. You need to come up with measures of suckiness. Now, you can't actually measure suck. All you can do is measure proxies for suck. And there are a lot of measures, and they aren't all great. None of them are perfect, but the perfect is the enemy of the good, right? I don't like using something like thousands of lines of code, per product revision as a measure, because that's so vague and it can be gamed. All metrics can be gamed, but if you come up with enough different metrics from enough different directions, you can get close to having a rough idea. And, I may not know that whether, having 1,000 bugs outstanding or having 10,000 bugs outstanding is a good place to be, but I can tell you that if last month I had 10,000 and this month I have 9,000, and as an organization we agreed that we want to hold that line at 9,500, then we're doing pretty well according to that metric, right? So create metrics that quantify how much things suck. And in case of operations, how many times does each individual subsystem require a human to come in and work with it? How many hours does it take to do a release? How many days does it take to go and spin up a new environment that your customers use? What should those numbers be? And that's where, quantify. Yeah. Then once you've come up with those metrics, you need to actually use them. And that doesn't mean you go through and do, once a year, you go and add up and look at the state of the system. You want to have dashboards that show these in real time. You want to see how many unit tests are passing on a continuous basis. You want to know how much your product is erroring out on a continuous basis. We already do monitoring. Those dashboards should show metrics of suck as well. Okay? And of course, sometimes you have to do manual audits, like how many of our procedures are undocumented. And sometimes that requires doing things like, let's pull in the new guy and tell him to go do something and just sit behind him and watch as he thrashes, and that'll identify all the places where we have documentation gaps, And those are manual audits, they're hard, but you can at least start with an inventory. Say, okay, we've identified that we have 45 manual processes, or we have 450 manual processes, and of those, only 3 of them can be done by someone who doesn't have intimate knowledge of the system. That's some data you can work with. And you go and present that to managers. Say, hey, by the way, we only have 3 out of 45 processes documented in a way that we can, solve those problems without the current staff who already knows the system intimately. That's an actionable request to management. And so we need to make sure we're expressing things in actual terms, not just saying, this stuff really sucks. So, setting goals for the suck. Now, this is the really hard part, because this is where we need to begin talking amongst ourselves. Different people have different levels of comfort with amounts of suck. You might say, oh my God, this code is a disaster, it's untestable, it's a pain in the butt to work on. But what you consider at that level is different than what the person next to you considers. We actually do have different levels of acceptable amounts of suck. Some people don't think having really high line coverage on a unit test coverage by line is important for certain modules. Like, that's just a utility module. We don't really need high coverage. Or other people say, no, I want to have 95% coverage over every possible code path. Or I don't want to have that because it's too much effort, and turns out most of our code paths are untestable because we have too much integration between this system and that other system. But wait, if I can't get test coverage because I can't mock out a component, that right there is telling you that there's a problem with the architecture inside your code. So you need to sit down with your teammates and decide, okay, let's set a goal, let's set a standard. And that standard should be based on the reality. You don't just come out of the gate and say, all right, we need to have 90% unit test coverage, and then it turns out you're at 12%. And then, okay, well, does that mean that 100% of your effort is now on nothing but code test coverage? Right? That's a terrible way of doing this. They just say, oh, if we're 12%, we're going to set our goal of all new code is at least 20% coverage, and the code base should never fall below what its current level of coverage. I mean, you can create goals, and you can track those goals, all right? You apply those goals by working with your product development process. those goals and variation and excursions from those goals should be added to your backlog for your development process. Use your existing product management pipeline to say, you know what, yeah, we got to get feature X done, feature Y done, deploy to region Z, right? But if these other things are also impacting you, they should be added to that list of how do we decide what work we're going to do when. It shouldn't be something that's implicit and aside from our work. There should be first order work that's added in. But it can only be first order work if you have measured it, created goals around it so you can identify the gap between where you are and where you want to be, and you can then express that in terms of whatever it is that you manage your workflow. However you do your project management inside your organization, find a way to get the suck into that pipeline. That's the big takeaway. You know, it's easy. Just do this, solve all your problems. It's a silver bullet, really. I'm kidding. I hope you know I'm kidding. No, it is extremely difficult, and 90% of this is about talking to people. It's about working with other people to establish these goals. Then there's the technical side of, okay, we need to, all right, if we're going to gather this metric, we need to, and our build system doesn't spit out things like, oh, how much coverage was there in the last unit test run? Set up a second build system that just once a day computes that number, right? Once you've found the metric, find a way to generate that metric in an automated fashion and push it into your monitoring system. And then use that to drive your product development. Add that into your product development pipeline. So, and of course, don't call it debt. It's a terrible word. Management hears the wrong thing. Executive management hears the wrong thing. Because executive management isn't looking at line items on your thing. They're hearing the trickled up, yeah, our devs, from the middle manager, our devs and our ops guys are complaining about unmanageability, and it's, yeah, there's something they're dealing with called technical debt. And the executive's sitting there with 43 different things he's dealing with, and in back-to-back meetings from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. where he's getting briefings from a whole bunch of different people, and when he hears the words technical debt, automatically, oh, that's fine, don't need to worry about that, let's move on. And so it's not getting the attention it deserves. So stop calling it technical debt. That's it. It's lunchtime. Or questions. What? Didn't you promise ponies? Oh, the ponies. Yeah, that was a complete lie. Yeah, I know. I'm a fraud. Actually, the ponies are right outside. First one through the door gets it. You missed it. No. Yeah.
Can you talk at all about some real-world reaction that you've gotten from management or executive level after applying?
I'm in a continual phase of trying to apply this. I mean, this isn't something you just do and then it's done. It's a matter of changing your attitude toward technical debt, and it's about getting metrics around what's wrong with your product. A very good metric is time to deploy. Like, how long does it take for us to release a new version of our product end to end? And having that as a first order metric and identifying that, okay, right now our time to deploy is X number of hours or days, and and as a group, what do we think is an appropriate time to deploy? And we've picked that number, and now as part of the development process, that is now a feature that the developers are tasked with working on. Get the deploy time down. And that means they have to investigate. Why is it so hard to deploy? Is it because that there's weird dependencies? Is it that we install 3 different pieces of software in 3 different systems and then keep rebooting them until they finally manage to all synchronize because there is a cycle in the dependencies? That puts it on the developers to actually sit down and think about, why does it take 3 days to deploy? Or why does it take 10 days to deploy? And so it's all about talking to people, but first you got to get hard numbers. So as previous speaker said, not confronting, but encountering someone in a hallway with a list of numbers is a very powerful thing. So
I'm trying to think of how what we can use as a better word for technical debt, and I like that you've picked up on financial industry speak, like the naked call option. I remember an explanation of life insurance is that when you get a life insurance policy, you are betting that you're going to die soon, and the insurance company is betting that you're not going to die soon.
Yeah.
And the idea, no one thinks of insurance as, oh, I'm betting that I'm going to die. I'm betting against my own long-term self-interest here.
Yeah.
So I think the answer might be, if we're going to find a better term for technical debt, it's going to be something like that makes it clear how these actions are so against our long-term self-interest.
Yeah, I agree, and I encourage people, talk to me, tweet. Let's come up with a better word for it, because suck is too. I mean, we need a number that will resonate with management so that it becomes a line item on their executive agenda. I think over the other end of the hotel, the 50th annual actuarial conference is going on. Maybe we should go and pick their brains. But no, you're right. It is like life insurance. I mean, basically, we are wagering that nothing bad will happen, but we know bad things are going to happen, But the real curse is that we're doing it for very, very limited benefit, and that's the thing that really kills me, is that it's like, every piece of debt in your code base, in your service, was bought cheaply. I mean, we're going to pay the price in the future, and the easiest time to refactor it was the very first time it was written, and it just gets harder and harder and harder to refactor as more and more code is laid on top of it. And the benefit that we gained, it's an hour here, a day there, it's sad when you think about, for all of that cruft that you've got inside your system, people got very little benefit for putting it in there, It's like maybe 100 hours total were saved over the life of your product to put that cruft in there, and now you've got 9 weeks of effort to disentangle and refactor the thing. Question?
Yes, it may also happen that engineers kind of not love but like technical debt, or even technical managers, because, I don't know, for various reasons, like job security, or just, I like just working things around and this kind of thing.
Yeah, the getting people to disentangle and simplify their systems, some people see that as a threat to their job security. Hopefully, I mean, that's just the reality. People do feel threatened when they no longer provide unique value to an organization. And for some people, their unique value may be understanding a very complex system that they're the only one who understands it. The Shirky principle, yeah. And so, I mean, some people take the notion of, you want to automate yourself out of a job as a threat. As an administrator, we want to automate ourselves out of a job because 90% of our job is a pain in the ass, right? We don't see that as if I automate everything, I'm going to get fired, because we all know that automation, at any level when we automate it, we all of a sudden create new, bigger meta problems, but also we're moving at a higher velocity, the business is doing more things, our org is more successful. It's only when we're stuck, having to manually reboot 4,000 machines every week as they fail, and the reboot process requires someone to remote in to go and start a command, because there's no way to get that to just kick off automatically, because first you got to manually check and see if some other file got corrupted during the crash, and that's not automated. But if that's huge waste of human effort. People are a very limited resource. I mean, who here is in an org that is currently looking for staff? Yeah. The limited resource in our org is always people. And so you have this short-term gain of, well, if I can save a day's worth of time on my staff, that's a quick win. But what's the long-term thing that you're actually buying? It's that short-term gain, limited now gain, with unlimited downside of the future. Unlimited, it could be big, it could be small. It could be that you get away with it. Many people, I know that I've gone years in my career not being caught out by the sins I've committed. I've gotten away with a lot of crimes, technical crimes. It's being recorded. I haven't committed any real crimes. But I've committed a lot of technical crimes. My career is built on a pyramid of crimes. Things that but see, the thing is, it's one thing to consciously decide that I'm willing to accept there are gaps in my code coverage. There are parts of my system that are untested, or there are parts that require manual deployment, because I know that I've reasoned that I'm only going to do that at a certain rate, or it's only going to come up so often, so it's not worth the effort today, because automating this won't pay off, right? But it's better to make that decision as a group within your org, that it meets with your standards of acceptable amounts of suck within your product, than to just implicitly have this stuff build up in the background and we don't actually even know about it or haven't quantified it in some way, So, no more questions? Awesome. Go to lunch.